All right, it's that time again. So let's see. Got a couple people waiting. Say hello. Just getting a couple things set up here. All right. Okay. So I'm thinking today I'm gonna probably just spend. I think we just need a little bit more time refining our skills with just some of the basic concepts of algebra. Uh, I know we talked in class today about knowing whether knowing what you can do and knowing what you should do, and being able to decide when's the best time to divide before you, to use division versus addition and subtraction. So I think that's going to be majority of what I talk about here. And we're going to do some word problems in class in the next couple days. So Thursday, Friday, we'll focus on more word-based problems, but I think we really need to just get down the basic concepts for being able to balance an equation. So that's what we're going to focus on today. And again, whether you're watching it live, if you're watching it live, go ahead and ask some questions about what we're doing, why we're doing it. Ask about certain situations. And if you're watching this after it's been recorded, then as I'm working through things, I would do them on your paper with me, and then I would also pause the video if you have questions. Go back, take a look, and then if you're still really confused about what's going on, that's a great time to come find me in class. So let's get to it. All right. So I'm going to put, again, like a lot of this, any group of numbers you put up here can end up working out. So is that my dog? All right, come here. What are you doing? Come here. Okay. All right, says she can't bother with you people right now. So we're going to start with just, like some of the basic problems we've been doing. So let's say we have 6x plus 4 equals, we'll say negative 12. Okay, so this looks more like an example that we saw in class today, where we have a number that's already outside the parentheses. Okay, so what that means is this entire problem, this entire expression, is being multiplied by 6. Okay, and then I'm looking on the other side of the equal sign here, and I see that I have a 12. Okay, and right now I don't particularly care whether it's negative or not. Those are rules that we learned back on the last test. So now it's just kind of up to us to decide to know whether when we manipulate the problem, are we dealing with a positive answer or a negative answer? Thank the Greek gods for Kylie and Mason's easel. You're telling me, seriously, man, where would we be without this thing, right? And the blanket rack. Okay, you gotta have the blanket rack with the dinosaur blanket. Okay, where would we be without it? And I used to have taller chairs, so I used to have taller dining room chairs that I could use to prop up the easel. But we got to go with the blanket rack today. That's all we got. So if things fall apart here, that'll be a little crazy. So, all right. But anyway, I'm gonna keep on going with this problem here. So initially, what we're talking about today is that something should right away catch your eye. And so if you're watching the stream, go ahead and tell me, what do you notice about this problem that might determine what we do first? Does anyone that's watching notice anything on either side of the equation? And I'll stare awkwardly until someone answers me. I can't do that, but still. What do you notice? What's possible here? There are parentheses. An excellent observation. Okay, but what I'm referring more to the compatibility of the numbers. Now, I know when I taught 4th grade, I taught what were called compatible numbers, and so that goes back to knowing your multiplication facts here. So, do I have any numbers that are compatible on both sides of the equation? Yes, no, maybe. Well, for the sake of the awkward silence, the 6 and the 4 cannot equal 12. Okay, I agree with that. So let's talk about the 6. Okay, so this is the point I was trying to make in class today. All right, if we have a 6 being multiplied over here, okay, if it's being multiplied, this is one of those situations where it does make sense to divide first. Okay, because not only can I divide the 6 out and get rid of it, but I have a 12 over here. And 12, because I know my multiplication facts, 12 is divisible by 6. So I know that if I divide both sides of the equation by 6 right off the bat, it's actually going to make it's going to make things a lot easier for me. You could divide both sides by 2, but that doesn't exactly eliminate the problem. Now we would have a 3 times an x over 2. Well, it gets messier. So if we can get rid of the 6, we want to get rid of the 6. In this case, we can because both sides are divisible by 6. Okay, so I'm going to divide by 6 on this side, and I'm going to divide by 6 over here. All right, and the reason I'm doing this, again, what's going on, Bliss? Yeah, because now once I divide, they cancel out. So now what's nice is this is gone. The 6 is gone, and all I have left is x plus 4. Okay, and that's way easier to deal with. Okay, I couldn't see or use the chat on PC. Oh, I'm sorry that happened. I'm not sure what's been happening. I changed my settings. I made it public. Everything should be good to go to comment. So I know that last time some of the school accounts had some restrictions, and I actually talked to the tech guys about that. And it doesn't sound like it's anything on the school account end. So I'm not sure why that's happening. So it's something I'm working on. I'm kind of ahead of the curve a little bit. Like I'm trying something new that a lot of people haven't tried before. So, so some stuff isn't going to work. So sorry that if the chat wasn't working before, but thanks for being flexible about it. So anyway, what we were just talking about was dividing both sides by 6 first, even though I've told you that it's much easier, or you usually want to start with getting rid of addition or subtraction. There are times where getting rid of multiplication and division makes more sense, okay? So I divided by 6 here because I'm going to get rid of that 6, and I can do it on this side too because 12 is divisible by 6, so I get a nice even number, okay? All right, so now I'm going to divide negative 12 by 6, okay? 12 divided by 6 is 2. Negative divided by positive ends up being a negative. All right, so now I have x plus 4 equals negative 2. All right, so I divided out the 6 on both sides, and I have a much easier problem to work with. So this is one of those situations where you can and you should divide first, okay, and get rid of the multiplication. All right, so now we just solve it like we normally do, okay? I take away 4 from both sides, okay, and remember these cancel, okay? So now I just have x. But this is the one thing that people seem to be messing up a lot. We just have to pay a little closer attention to what we're doing. We have a negative 4 and a negative 2. If you put those together, if we're combining like terms, a negative 2 minus a 4 is the same as negative 2 plus negative 4. So that would make a negative 6, okay? Because we're going further into the negative, okay? And I'm sorry about your finger. That is a bummer. Since some things Mrs. Fitzgerald said about him. Okay, that's fine. I'm glad you're here. I like that Miss Fitzgerald and I and Mrs. Steffens and I, we all talk and we all plan together and we're all trying to be on the same page with stuff. So, a lot of what you're learning in that classroom, we're going to be learning here and that we learn in my classroom. So sometimes hearing it from a different person just gives you a little different perspective. So there's nothing wrong with that. And that's awesome that we can do that. So anyway, this is one of those problems where dividing by 6 first does make sense, okay? But there's another situation that we can look at. We still can solve this the way that we've been talking about. I used to have an eraser. Oh man, Mrs. Coffee's gonna kill me for using the blanket. Uh-oh. At least it's blue. So we're gonna go back to the original problem, okay? So the tough part about algebra that I find is that algebra provides you with options, okay? You've been so used to someone telling you to do things in a certain order. I'm sorry to hear about that. Not the dinosaur blanket. Okay. But anyway, you've been so used to someone telling you do this and this step, this step, this step, this step. Okay. But algebra is very different because now we're balancing an equation and we can do anything we want to either side of it as long as we do it to the other side. Okay. So as long as I'm doing the same thing here to here, I can do anything I want. And I think that's the hardest concept to understand as a 7th grader. Because we've been so used to things being pretty linear, like doing things in order. But in this case, the order is kind of up to you, but you want to make sure you're making smart decisions. And I tell my class all the time, just because you can doesn't mean you should. Okay, just because I can multiply 10,000 over here and 10,000 over here, yeah, I could do that, but does that mean I should? Probably not, because that's not going to help the problem be easier. Okay, but like I said, we can divide both sides by 6 right off the bat. Another thing we can do this a different way. So I'm going to do the same problem. You can still do the distributive property, okay? Just like we learned in the last unit, okay? So you have 6x plus 24 equals negative 12, okay? And we'll see if we end up getting the same answer, okay? So we can still follow all the same steps, okay? So I'm going to take away a 24 here. I'm adding 24, so to get rid of it, I have to subtract 24. And what I do to one side, I have to do to the other side, okay? That's how algebra works. We have to do the same thing to both sides, okay? So now this cancels. That's why we subtracted by 24, is because to make this go away. So we want 6x by itself so we can deal with that. Okay, and again, now we're going to combine like terms. I have a negative 12 and a negative 24, so I'm going to put them together, and I end up getting a negative 36. Okay, so now it just comes down to dividing both sides by 6 because we're going to do what's called the inverse operation, the opposite operation. Okay, so if I'm multiplying by 6 here, then I have to divide by 6. Okay, so now it cancels, and I just have an x, which is great. But what I do to one side, I have to do to the other. Okay, that's the one of the golden rules here. So 36 divided by, or negative 36 divided by a positive 6 ends up being a negative 6. And that should look familiar because that was our answer the last time we did this, okay? The only difference was we distributed instead of dividing out by 6, okay? But if you think about it, I had to divide by 6 anyway, right? I divided by 6 down here. So all we did was make that the first step, and that just kind of changed the order in which we did things, okay? So before I move on from this problem, was there anything you wanted to go over again or any questions you have? Because I'm more than happy to break this one down. Are we able to do this a different way on the test? You can use either method. Either method will get you the correct answer. Okay, let's say there is something like 3 minus 5. Would that be considered as 3 minus 5 or 3 and a negative? Okay, that's a great question. And in my classroom, I do talk about this a lot. Sorry, I had a TV I was using for light, and it just went off. So sorry. There you go. I'm on. The TV's back on. Yeah, you can use any method, but these are the methods that are more guaranteed to get you the right answer. Okay, so I just had a student. I think that's one of Miss Fitzgerald's students asking about kind of probably some of my language, the way that I'm using the terminology here. So I'm going to go back up a step here. Okay, and again, I know I'm focusing on just one problem, but we're not checking problems today or anything, so it's probably good to use the same numbers a few times to really talk about what we're doing. Okay, thanks for dropping in, Amelia. Have a good day. Hope your finger feels better. Put some ice on that. But anyway, so when I said I was going to subtract by 24, again, I'm trying to get the term with the x attached to it by itself. Okay, so I subtract from 24 because I want this to go away. Now, here's the thing. This might be confusing if you're not in my class, because I do say this a lot in this way. I say another way you could look at this is I have a positive 24 here, so I'm going to put a negative 24 on here to cancel it out. If I put a negative 24 over here, then I need a negative 24 over here. Okay, the reason I can call it either or is because if I'm subtracting positive 4, it's the same as adding negative 4. Okay, it's the same thing. I think did I say 24 or 4? It's been a long day. So if I have a negative 24, that's the same as subtracting a positive 24. So I can say it either way. I like to say it all depends on the situation. Okay. And we'll talk about a couple of those situations as we move along here. Okay. But yeah, that's kind of the terminology I use, and both are correct. Okay. All right, dinosaur blanket. Mrs. Coffee's gonna kill me. I'm sorry. Happy Valentine's Day, though. I mean, well. All right, it actually isn't even working as well as I thought. I guess I better use the mermaid blanket. The mermaid tail will get rid of that. Oh my god, now Kylie's gonna kill me. They're both gonna be mad at me. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh gosh. Oh, you can't even notice that. I'm not gonna get in trouble. Okay, so let's see what's next on the agenda here. Okay, so again, I'm going to focus more on the computation aspect of it as opposed to the. I'm not going to do any story problems tonight, but again, we're going to go over those in class, and this is what we really have to understand in order for this to make sense. Okay, so I'm going to pull up some problems that I had in class today, and some of them resemble. Well, actually, they resemble problems that are on the test. So we do want to talk about these. So we had one today that we talked about. So I had a negative 4 equals x over 8. Okay, and it's plus 14. Okay, so this has got a lot of funky stuff going on in there. So we'll have to talk about this. I'm sorry about your dinosaur. All right, so this is a situation where we can't. There's not really a whole lot. We can't do any, what's it called? We're not multiplying by anything, okay? We have division. We're dividing a variable by a number. and we have addition. Okay, so we have a couple choices here. We could get rid of the 8 right away by doing the opposite operation, or we can get rid of the minus 14. So um, I'm going to get rid of the minus 4. I'm going to get rid of the plus 14 first. What is going on today? I feel like I'm not like talking correctly. I can get rid of the plus 14 first, or I can get rid of the 8 on the bottom first. And again, we have to talk about when this makes sense to do that. Okay. In this situation, I would say it's better to get rid of the 14. None of the numbers really work well here. I'm already dividing, so I don't want to divide by anything. So I would say it's best here to let's get rid of the 14. Okay. We want to get the variable by itself, and we want to do that in the best way possible. So we could multiply by the reciprocal, but again, here's the thing. Let's solve the problem first, and that the way that I was going to say, and then we'll talk about we could do it the other way. But let's talk about why maybe that's not the greatest idea. Okay. So what I could do here is I can do a negative 14 on this side and a negative 14 on this side. Okay. The positive 14, negative 14 cancels, and so does the sign, which is nice. And a negative 4 and a negative 14, we put those together. We have a negative 18, and that equals x over 8. Okay. So now we have to decide. And again, if I'm making any mistakes or anything, let me know. I'm always happy to give people a panther pause if I'm making a mistake. So now what we have to do, I just heard Alex say we have to multiply by the reciprocal, and you are correct. Okay. So we'll look at it this way. In this case, look at it like we are dividing, because that's what we're doing. We're taking x, we're dividing it by 8. Okay. So if we're dividing by 8, we have to do the inverse operation. We have to do the opposite operation. So if I'm dividing by 8, the way I get rid of it is I multiply by 8. Okay. And again, these cancel, which is the goal. So now I have x equals, and then here's the deal. Since I multiply by 8 here, I have to multiply by 8 over here. So I'm going to multiply negative 18 by 8. Okay. So now I'm doing the same thing to both sides. So I'm keeping things even. So now I'm allowed to do that. Okay. So the x is by itself. That's the goal. And then I have to do 18 times 8. I know my answer is going to be negative because I have a negative times a positive. Okay, so let's multiply this out. Okay, I know you can use a calculator on your test, but still should know how to multiply. Okay, and it looks like our answer is going to be a negative 144 if I multiplied correctly. That sounds right, I think. Let me just double check my math here really quick. 8 times 8 is 64, carry the 6. 1 times 8 is 8, plus 6 is 14. Yeah, that's right. If I'm wrong, let me know. 12 times 12. Yeah, same column, same deal. Okay, so that's how we look at this problem. And I know someone was talking about you can multiply 8 to start to get rid of it, but then you have to multiply 14 by 8 at the same time, and it just creates a bit more of a mess. So again, this is one of those situations where you can start by doing the multiplication, but that doesn't mean you should, okay, because it's going to make things a little bit more complicated. So in this situation, probably best to subtract the 14 and then multiply by 8 to get rid of the division, okay? So again, just knowing what you can do in algebra is probably the tough part. And then the next step from that is once you know what you're able to do, what you're allowed to do within the rules, then it's hard to know when should you do something. Okay. And so that's where a lot of the review is coming in today. So we're going to move on to another problem. So we've seen division now, and we know that if we're dividing, we got to multiply to get rid of it. But to get to that, we had to get rid of the plus 14. So that's what we did. Okay. So sorry, mermaid blanket. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. I lit up the frozen car. This is my life. This is my life outside of school, people. This is just how it goes. Okay, so the next problem. Sorry. Okay. Let's see. So once you do positive 14 minus 14, the plus sign disappears as well. Yes. Yep, that's correct. And that's the whole reason we do that. And I'll show you on the next problem too that and I say it that way so that I make sure that I have the correct sign. So here's another problem that we did in class. Okay. We have a 1/3 times a 5x plus 6 equals 8. Okay. And here's a problem in class that I feel like a lot of people were initially a little scared of. Okay. And again, it's because people have a very unhealthy fear of fractions. Fractions are fantastic. However, you've been taught to fear them. Stop being afraid of them. They're fantastic. They're way easier to work with. Okay. That's okay. That's why I'm hopping on here. So no, I'm happy you're tuning in. You're much less likely to do. You're gonna do a lot better because you're putting the time in now to make sure you understand what you're doing. And I at least in my class, my test is gonna be given on Tuesday. So that gives you to tomorrow, Friday, and the weekend to come up with some questions and make sure you understand what you're doing. And the biggest thing I want to stress too, which my class is probably so tired of hearing, but it's true, is keep up with your Mathia. Okay, so if your teacher's assigning you Mathia, I know that it's not the most fun thing you could be doing, but it's really your only consistent homework, and there's a purpose to it. The people in class that have been doing their Mathia are scoring better on their tests. That is they are connected. Okay, there is a correlation there because people who are not keeping up with their Mathia are having a much harder time in class and therefore having a much harder time on their tests. Okay, so that's a fact. I can prove that with the data. Okay, so I'm stressing that to you guys. That's really important. Okay, so keep up with that stuff. Don't fall behind. Don't procrastinate because then you're not going to feel as confident in class. And it's very important that you feel good about what you're doing. So I know, yeah, Matthew, whatever. Okay, there's a lot of things in my job this is your job. Your job is to go to school and to work hard. Okay, I got stuff in my job that I'm not particularly fond of, but it's part of my job. I got to do it. Okay, so it's just something you got to do. So that's just the way it is. All right. So let's talk about the next problem here. Okay, now we have a fraction. We're multiplying by a fraction. Okay. Now let's talk about what's actually happening here and why we can do what I'm about to do here. Okay, so you got to hear me out. Okay, so if I multiply this whole thing by 1/3, okay, think about this. Okay, think about when we're multiplying by a fraction, right? We multiply the top by the top and we multiply the bottom by the bottom, right? Because any whole number or any expression over 1 is still that expression or whole number, right? Okay, like if I put 8 over 1, all right, I still have 8. Okay, I can do that though. All right, I can do that in order to multiply by fractions. So the reason I'm showing you this, and bear with me on this, don't let it confuse you. Okay, I'm showing you that you can do this because what's going to end up happening is, let's say I do this. Let's say I'm multiplying 1/3 by all of these things. Okay, I could distribute it and create a giant mess. That's not fun. I could multiply straight across and get 15x plus 6 over 3 equals 8. So now I'm dividing. That's great. That doesn't help. Okay, these are things we can do, but again, does that mean that we should? Probably not. If it's making things worse, it's not a good idea. Okay, so, but what you have to understand here is that when you're multiplying by 1/3, it is the same as dividing by 3. I hope you picked up on that. I hope that you're hearing what I'm saying and it's making sense because I just proved it. Okay, I'm multiplying this expression by 1/3, right? And I'm going to rewrite this. Okay, because now you saw it. You can always go back and rewind. Okay, so we talked about that we would multiply straight across anyway. Okay, so if I'm multiplying by 1/3, this whole expression can wind up over 3. And again, it's a division problem. Okay, yes, you could distribute, but now you have 5/3, over 2, 5/3 x plus 2. So now we still have a fraction we have to deal with. Okay, so these are all things we can do, but we have to talk about what we should do. And again, that is based on the fact that we are really dividing by 3. When you're multiplying by 1/3, you're finding 1/3 of something. That's the same as dividing it into thirds, dividing it by 3. Okay, so my point being, if you see that you have a fraction here, like a 1/3, okay, when you divide by a fraction, because again, if we're multiplying, we know, we have to divide to get rid of it. Okay, when you divide by a fraction, okay, we know that we're supposed to multiply by the reciprocal, right? So if I have a 1/3 here that I want to go away, I would divide it out, but dividing by fractions, we multiply by the reciprocal, right? So we multiply by 3 over 1. And again, if I do that to this side, then I have to do it to this side. And I'm just going to multiply by 3 here because 3 over 1 is 3. Okay, so I'm multiplying both sides by 3. So I've talked a lot about this 3 and how it involves the fraction, okay, because there's a lot of different ways that we can look at this. And so you kind of have to hone in on which way you understand best, okay? So for me, the way I see this is I have to divide out a 1/3, okay, right? I'm multiplying by 1/3, so I have to divide by 1/3. But we know with fractions, the way you divide by a fraction is you multiply by the reciprocal, okay? So another way that you could look at this to simplify this in your mind, you're going to multiply by 3 over 1, okay? But another way to look at this is if I'm multiplying by 1/3, I'm really dividing by 3. We talked about this. I won't go into it again, but we're really dividing by 3. So that being said, I can just multiply by 3. Okay, we're back to this. We're back to square one. We're doing the same thing in a couple different ways. Okay, but it should help our understanding to know that if I'm multiplying by 1/3, I'm really dividing by 3. And if I'm dividing by 3 to get rid of that, I do the opposite operation. I multiply. Okay, so it all ends up being the same thing. Hey, Emily, good to see you. And let's see. That would help me because I like the distributive property. Yes. Okay. So, but here's the thing. Now you don't have to distribute because that just goes away. Okay, you're dividing by 3, you're multiplying by 3. Okay, I'm going to do it again. Don't freak out. Let's put it back the way it was. Okay, so you can still do this. If I still have 1/3 out here, I can still multiply by 3 and cross it out. It's the same thing. That's the whole point of this whole discussion, is that it's the same thing. All right, Beef Boss fan. I'm glad that that makes sense. I'm not sure what your real name is, but it's a pretty solid screen name. So yeah, so that's what I'm trying to tell you is now this goes away, and now all you have is what's in the parentheses. This is gone. We don't have to deal with it now. I don't want to deal with fractions. Okay, well, I'd take it back. I like fractions. Once you understand fractions, way easier. Okay, so I times by 3 on this side. That goes away. The parentheses open up, and now we have what's in them because all this mess is gone. Okay, but I still have 8 times 3, which is 24. Okay. So I had to do the same thing on the other side. Okay. So now let's talk about what we do here. Hold on a second. Did I mess up? Yes, I did. For this problem, that was supposed to be a -6. I'm sorry. All right, sorry. That expression was supposed to be -6. I was looking at it wrong. Oh, there goes my TV. Got to put that back on. Anyway, so now I'm left with is the 5x minus 6. I changed it because I made a mistake. I wrote the problem down wrong, so that's all that was. Okay, so this is how it was originally. Okay, so now I had someone asking me about it, can you call a -6 a -6? I like to call it a -6. Okay, if we're subtracting a +6, it's the same as adding a -6. Okay, so we learned this in the last 2 units ago. Okay, so for me, if I see a -6, I just like to call it -6 because then I know what I get rid of. I get rid of the sign too. Okay, so if I'm subtracting by 6, okay, I'm going to add 6, right? If I have a -6 here, I need a +6 to cancel it out. Okay, so now 5x is all alone, which is fantastic. Okay, but what I did to this side to keep it equal, I have to do it to the other side. Okay, I got to be fair. All right, so the analogy I use is this. I have 2 children, okay? And, if you have a sibling, maybe you understand this. But, I remember I was growing up, okay? I was one of 3. I was the middle child, okay? And, if my older brother got something, I was like, what? Like, that's not fair. Like, we should be equal here. If you love us all equally, then, I should get what he's getting. Which, of course, with, someone's older, it's a little different. I know that now. But I remember as a kid being like, whoa, whoa, whoa. If you love us all equally, then, all 3 of us should have that. So that's the analogy I like to use. If you're going to do something for one kid, you got to do it for the other kid, or otherwise it's going to create a mess, right? So, if I give Kylie something, better give Mason something of equal value because I'm gonna hear about it. So, so what I do to this side, I do for that side. Okay, what I do for one kid, I got to do for the other. That's the way I look at it. So, anyway, and the reason I picked +6 is because I want to get x by itself. So I'm trying to get rid of as much stuff as I can attached to that 6. So got rid of that, but I have to do it to this side too. So now I have 5x equals 30. Okay. And now it's just back to basics. Okay, I'm timesing by 3. I do the inverse operation. I divide. Okay, I'm multiplying by 5, divide by 5. Now x is by itself. That's the goal. But again, what do you do to this side? You got to do that side, right? You got to keep it fair. Got to keep it even. And x ends up equaling 6. Okay, so that's how that problem works. I know we talked a lot about a couple different concepts in this one, but again, it's to help your understanding of what you're allowed to do in algebra. And that's the hardest part, as I said tons of times, is that there's so many options. So you have to know which one's the right option, okay? And you'll know because if you try something that creates a mess, then maybe I shouldn't have done that first because this is all a mess and it's going to take me a while to figure out, or I'm going to make a bunch of mistakes. So maybe there was something easier I could have done, okay? So that's my big goal tonight, is talking about what you can do, what are the rules, and how do you manipulate these problems. So I don't see any. Let's see. You can take notes on Cami. Yes, you can. You totally can. I would. In fact, these are problems that we did on Kami. So I would definitely be doing these problems on Kami so that you have a reference when you want to study this weekend, which you better study this weekend because I'm giving you the weekend. Sorry, that seemed a little threatening. Please do that for your benefit. Okay, I wouldn't sit here on a Wednesday night on my free time going over this stuff if I didn't want to see you be successful. Okay, I have to tell you, I say it. I think I say it every time. Like, we teachers, we're not against you guys. We're on your team. We want you to do well. It may, again, if you're doing well, then we're doing. Then we know that we're doing what we need to do. If our whole class is not doing well, then we're like, oh my gosh, we need to fix our teaching. We need to make adjustments. We need to make sure everyone's getting what they need. There's not a teacher that's out to get you. I'll tell you that, and I promise you that. Okay, so there's teachers that are tough on you. I know I'm tough on my students and what I expect, and I expect them to do what's assigned to them. And so if they choose not to do that, well, then I can't give them any points. Like, that's just you got to take initiative here. So the older you get, the more you realize that, like, hey, teachers are on my team here. They want me to do well. It's just a matter of me taking the initiative and doing what I'm supposed to do. So that's the big thing I feel like I've been saying a lot in my class is that, just make sure you're doing what's expected of you. If you're doing what's expected of you, you're going to keep up and you're going to be successful. If you're not doing what's expected of you, then you only have yourself to blame. Okay. And if you are doing everything that's expected of you and you're still not doing well, okay, man, that's when teachers are way more than happy to help you because, we want to get you on track too. So I'll stop now. I'll stop now. But, I feel like I have to say those things, it's important. Okay. Let's talk about another problem here. Okay. This was an interesting one. So we have a negative 3x plus 18. Okay, and this equals a negative 33. All right, so now we got a couple of things we have to figure out here. Okay. Oh, let's see. Where do I want to go with this? And I'm looking at I'm using my computer and my school computer, not my home computer. So everything's in reverse. So I look on here like trying to figure out what is happening behind me. So I have to turn my head a lot more when I'm doing it this way. So anyway, here's my dilemma here. Got a couple things we could do here, and I'm going to do it two different ways. Okay. I'm going to do it the way that's probably most comfortable, that you're most used to. Okay. And I'm just going to subtract 18 from this side. Okay. I got a positive 18 here, put a negative 18 here. To keep it even, I got to put a negative 18 over here. Now, here's the thing. I had a lot of students in class who did not combine these terms correctly. Okay. So these go away. But I had a lot of people who ended up going the wrong way with this problem. Okay, so now I have a negative 3x. Okay, but I had a lot of people not do this. It's a negative 51. Okay, I have two negative numbers. I add them together and I keep the negative sign. Okay, because if I have negative 33 and I'm taking away 18 more, I'm already in the negative. So my negative number is going to get bigger. I'm going further away from 0. Okay, so I put my legs up. It's killing me. Sit this way. All right. So anyway, now I have negatives on both sides. Okay. So I don't want to get into that, but what we can do here now is, we can divide by a negative 3 on both sides. Okay. And assuming we divide correctly, let me see. I think that's 17. That sounds right. And it's got to be a positive 17 because a negative divided by a negative is a positive. Okay. So we got the answer. We know the answer is 17. We're going to put that over here. We're going to see if we can get this a different way. Okay, because again, my job tonight is to provide you with options. Okay, so one thing we may have missed is there may have been an easier way to tackle this problem. But again, you kind of have to have your eyes open on this one to make sure you're not missing any key points. So we got 17. 17 is the correct answer. Let's see if there's another way we could have gotten that answer. Okay, use my old mermaid fin here. Okay, like that. Okay, there we go. All right, so I got a negative 3x plus 18 equals negative 33. Now, when I taught 4th grade, I stressed over and over to practice your multiplication facts. Now, if you've practiced your multiplication facts, you should notice something here. All these things, they have something in common, and they have a common factor. Okay, they have something that you could divide all of them by to make the problem very easy. Okay. And the easiest thing to divide by would be whatever is attached to the x. Okay, we want to get x by itself anyway. So this is one of those situations where you could divide both sides by something, and you should. This is one of those situations where you can and you should. Okay, So in this case, and this is where we have to be careful, okay? You can divide both sides by 3. You can, okay? Every single number up here has a common factor, and it's 3. But here's the thing. I have a negative over here. I have a negative over here. All right. And if I just divide by 3, okay, what's going to happen is I still have the negative sign here. So what I have to divide by, I have to divide by a -3. I need all of that to cancel. Because if I divide by a +3, I still have a negative sign. All right. And a lot of people, when they divide by 3, they forget that negative sign, and that's kind of important. Okay. So I'm going to divide both sides by a -3. Okay. So the reason I'm doing this, and this is where you have to be careful. Okay. If I'm dividing this whole thing by 3, what I'm really doing is I'm dividing all of the pieces by 3. Okay. So same thing, but I just rewrote it to show you that I'm dividing each part by 3. Okay, I have to divide the whole side by 3. That means every part of it. Okay. And over here, I just have 1 piece, but here I have 2. So I have to divide both of them by 2. That's the purpose. Okay. So this goes away, which is nice. I've got x. 18 divided by a -3 is a -6. All right. Now, there was a student that asked about that. Did you see how I wrote that? I wrote it as a -6, but again, it's subtraction. And that's because adding a negative is the same as subtracting. Okay, so I look at, I got a +18, a -3, I should have a -6, and that winds up being subtraction. So that's how I write that to keep that straight in my mind. Okay, and I know that 33 divided by 3 is 11. Okay, because 3 times 11 is 33. A negative divided by a negative is a positive, so it should be a +11. Okay, which is how many viewers I have today, which is fantastic for such short notice. So I'm thrilled about that. All right, and now this is a much more manageable problem. I'm not subtracting away 18 from here. It just makes it more, it just makes it simpler. Okay, but again, you have to know you're able to do that. All right, so now it's a matter of getting rid of the -6, which I need a +6. Okay, so over here needs +6. Those cancel. I got an x. And if we did it correctly, 11 plus 6 ends up equaling 17 again. All right, so same answer. Okay, we just did it a different way. All right, so you have to decide again, what's going to be easiest for you. Okay, we solved it like normal. We subtracted 18 from both sides and still worked out. So, I mean, if that way made sense to you, stick with it. If you notice that you could do that, I just want to let you know that you can. Okay, that is an option. Okay. Again, we have to decide. Just because we can doesn't mean we should. In this case, we could, and I think in this case we should. Okay, because it makes it easier. All right. Oh man, I'm very tired. I'm like ready to go to bed. But we still have. I can still hang out for about 20 more minutes. I'm going to go over a couple more problems. Okay. And again, tomorrow we're going to talk more about story problems. We're going to talk about word problems, and we're more than prepared for that if we understand the computation. We just have to know what we're looking for. And unfortunately, the live stream just isn't conducive for word problems. I would have to have a way to show them. I'd have to have a way to show you my screen, and I have a way, but it's overly complicated. I don't know. I'll work on it. All right, I'm thinking about it. Okay, let me see. So I'm gonna look up another problem here that might give us a little trouble here. All right, I don't want to look at that. Oh, yeah, this is the sheet I want. All right, so this is interesting. Okay, so we had this discussion in class. I'm going to write this problem twice because there's a couple different ways to look at it. And I'm going to write it again over here. 6x minus 4 equals 26. All right, so let's talk about a couple different ways to look at this problem. I need help on word problems. Yeah, that's, again, I'm spending 2 days on it. We're going to do that in class. We're going to hit it pretty hard. And again, it's also, I think that this, Mr. Beef Boss fan, I think it's really important we understand the computation, because if we don't know how to manipulate the numbers, then it's really hard to do the word problems because we don't quite know what the word problems are then asking us or telling us. So it's important to really get this part down. Okay, and then tomorrow, I believe all the 7th grade teachers are going to go over word problems. So tomorrow's a great day to ask questions about how to pick out information from word problems. All right, so again, I'm going to look at these problems in 2 different ways. Okay. I could do this like we normally do. Okay. I don't know why I just did that. That's how tired I am. I'm getting to that point in the season where I actually have to wrestle with the kids in wrestling, so I get infinitely more tired. Okay, so in this case, I can add a 4 to both sides like we've been doing. Okay, that cancels. 6x equals 30, divided by 6, divided by 6, x equals 5. Okay, so I can do that. That's fine. What I'm going to do, I don't know that you really need to do, but you can do it. All right, so this is one of those situations where you can. I don't know if you should, but it's a good thing to know how to do. Is I can see that all of these are divisible by 2, right? They're all even. Okay, I can't really divide by 6 because then I'm going to get 4/6, right? I have to divide that by 6, and having 4/6 doesn't do us any good. 26 is not a multiple of 6, so I'm going to get 26 over 6, which is like 13 over 3. So it just creates a mess. Like we don't want to do that. So dividing by 6 doesn't make sense here. But what you can do is you could, when we learned about the distributive property and pulling out a factor, you could factor this out. Okay, you could pull out a 2. All right. So I could pull out a 2 because 2 times 3x is 6x. 2 times -2 is -4. All right, so I could pull a 2 out of there if I want to. I don't have to, but I can. Okay. So now if I really want to, I could divide both sides by 2. The 2 cancels. I'm left with 3x minus 2. I got to divide by 2 on this side. Okay, and 26 divided by 2 ends up equaling 13. All right, so now, I mean, not a huge difference in the problem, but it's, it makes it a little simpler, I suppose. So now I have a -2, so I can add 2 to both sides. All right, I have 3x because these canceled, so 3x is by itself. 13 plus 2 is 15. Okay, divide both sides by 3, and x ends up equaling 15 divided by 3, which is 5. So we got 5 again. Okay, so again, these are things that you can do. In this case, I don't know that we should have, because I'm looking at how many steps this was compared to that. And again, just because you can doesn't mean you should. In this situation, I think we could have just left it as is here, and this would have been probably the simpler way to do it. Okay, so I'm hoping that that's making sense, that there's a couple of different ways to look at this. And of course, we want to, how did I know that was going to turn on? We want to make sure that we are following the order of operations. But the older you get, the concept, it's very important to understand the concept that you can do it either way, because there's going to be situations where it is easier to factor something out. Okay, so we want to understand that we can do that in 7th grade, so that when life gets harder in 8th grade, we can handle that. So I think I've got time for maybe one more problem. I'm going to try, sorry, my chair's all over the place. There we go. I'm going to try one more problem. And if there's any particular questions that you have, I'm happy to answer. All right, I think this one gets us trying to find a problem that gets us a weird answer, because one thing I want to stress is I feel like when people get fractions, they want to divide and get a decimal right away, but it's okay to leave things as a fraction. All right. So, all right, let's try another one. And I'm hoping that these are getting increasingly simpler, because I'm not really changing the difficulty of them. I'm just kind of changing the setup of each problem, and then the same rules apply. So hopefully we're starting to catch on to what those rules are. Okay, so let's say I have a 4x minus 3 that equals a -44. Okay, I'm actually gonna write this problem twice, because I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna show you side by side, and then we can talk about what the better option was. Oh Lord, might owe Kylie a new blankie. Okay, so 4, and it's x minus 3 equals -44. And again, I'm going to do it twice. Okay, so we're going to talk about 2 different ways to look at this problem. Okay, and hopefully my handwriting has been clear enough. If it hasn't, let me know. I can always fix stuff. So, all right. So again, I feel like the thing that we're going to default to, the thing we're going to want to do right away, is the distributive property. So 4x minus, well, 4 times 3 is 12, and that equals a -44. Okay, I get rid of a -12 by adding 12, right? Or I get rid of a -12 by adding a +12 to this side. Okay, so that cancels. What I do to this side, I have to do to that side. Hopefully I do it correctly, because I got negative numbers. So I have a -44, I'm adding 12. So I'm getting closer to 0 because I'm adding 12. Okay, so my number, whilst negative, the digits should get smaller. Okay, but the value is actually increasing, which is weird. Okay, so For example, if I owe someone $44 and I say, here, hey, here's $12, well, then they say, okay, now you only owe me 36 bucks or $32. Okay? You only owe me $32. Okay, so we're still in the negative, but we're adding 12 to a negative 44. Okay, so now I have 4x equals negative 32. Okay, so I'm going to divide both sides by 4 because that's the opposite operation. X is now by itself. And then I just have to divide by 4 on this side to make sure that I get the right answer, which is negative 8. Negative divided by positive is negative. 8 times 4 is 32. So 32 divided by 4 would give me 8. So the answer is correct. All right, so now what happens now? Why did I write it twice? Well, we missed something, people. We missed something. We're timesing the whole expression by 4, and this answer is divisible by 4. So wouldn't it make the most sense to just divide out the 4? It's already pulled out of here. That's divisible by 4. So we could just divide both sides by 4. All right, so that goes away. And now we just have x minus 3, and we don't have any parentheses anymore. Okay, and then it's just a matter of negative 44 divided by 4, which would be 11, and it's negative because negative divided by positive is negative. All right, so now that's a little bit more manageable in my opinion. So now all I have to do is add 3 to both sides. Put a positive 3 on both sides because now the negative 3 and the positive 3 cancel. So now we have x. And a negative 11 plus 3 is going to give us a negative 8. Okay, if I owed you $11 and I said, hey man, here's 3, you're like, okay, now you only owe me $8 because you paid me 3 back. All right, so we're negative 11, positive 3, we have a negative 8. And wouldn't you know it, these answers are the same. All right, so the system works. Okay, but again, look how much less this was. Okay, well, I guess it's kind of the same amount of steps if we're being technical. 1, 2, 3. I don't know. It's kind of even on that one, but I think for in my opinion, I think it's easier to just get rid of the 4 because I think this is a much easier equation to solve than when you're dealing with bigger numbers. So there's just less of a chance for error if you can do that. So anyway, I think a lot of people are going to be watching this in retrospect. They're going to be watching this the next day, so that's fine. And I know tomorrow there's some map testing going on, so I don't know. I don't know how much we're gonna be able to watch this in the next couple of days. But again, that's why we're gonna test after the weekend so that people have time to study. And the next 2 days we're gonna go over word problems. So looking at, let me see, I'm gonna look at the test right now. And obviously there's certain things I can't tell you, even though I want to. Okay, but there will be computation problems like the one we just did, where you just straight up solving the equation. Okay. There will be some word problems where you have to interpret the wording to know what the equation is. So a certain number less than the quotient of this is that. So you have to kind of read and interpret that. I think a lot of us did a Go formative on that, so at least you've seen that before a couple times, so that should be pretty comfy. And then there's a couple word problems, but again, very doable. Then you have to find the error. Okay, so you have to look at some student work and you have to figure out where they messed up and why they didn't do it correctly. So, if you watch me long enough, I make plenty of errors, so you should be able to catch those things by now. Let me see what else, and then. I think that's actually it. I don't think there's anything else that's going to be on this test. It looks like we're pretty set. So, yeah. So the word problems again. Once you understand the computation, the word problems become a lot easier. So that makes it. That just makes everything easier. I'll just put it that way. What is this? Is this the right one? Yeah, I had the right one. What am I doing? Okay. So that's that. All right. Well, if you've got any last minute questions before I go, let me know. If there's something else you want to go over, let me know. Can you go over with me what we did on Go Formative? Yes, I can. Miss Fitzgerald says there was going to be a fine. Yes, there. Yeah, and I did mention that there will be. You'll be looking at some student work, and then you have to find the error. So we can talk about the Go Formative, but the problem is you can't really see it, and I don't know that. Well, I mean, I could write it. I guess I'll do one problem from the formative that we did. Equation word problems. Okay, so let's see. Okay, let me see here. I'm trying to find a little bit more complicated one. Oh, okay. So here's a good example. All right, I'll do one of these, but don't make fun of my handwriting, okay? I got a hard enough time as it is. Okay. Just trying to live my life. Okay. So let's see. So here's a problem that we had. Okay. So it's 4 less than the product of a number and 2 is 12. Okay. All right. So, yep, we're going to see problems like this on the test. And we have to talk about what they mean. Bye. Thanks for the stream. This was helpful. Good. I'm glad. And if you want to stick around for this last problem, I'll be done in like 3 minutes. So this one's not going to last very long. But anyway, so let's start looking at this is written in, regular plain old English. Okay. So let's talk about what we do to make it look like math. Okay. Math is a universal language. So, we have to basically translate this is the way I look at it. So we have 4 less than. Okay. So that tells me, so 4 less than. This tells me that we are subtracting by 4. If we're doing less than, we're taking it away, and it's 4. So something 4. So 4 less than, and I'm going to put that at the end of the expression because I have 4 less than something. I don't know what that something is yet, but whatever it is, I have 4 less than of that. So I'm going to put it right in the middle because that's going to go at the end of the expression. It sounds like. All right. The next part is the product. All right. The product. Product implies that, this is the answer of a multiplication problem. Okay, so that's my little, we do a dot, I guess. I'll do a dot. So, so the product of a number, okay, so a number, this implies a variable. This is an unknown, okay? The variable I'm going to use is x. All right, so we have 4 less than the product, so we're multiplying, of a number and 2. So we're taking 2. We're timesing it by a number. Okay? That's what it's telling me, right? 4 less than the product of a number and 2. So we're timesing these 2 together. Okay? And we're saying that this is, and is means equals 12, and it's written, so we just write it in numerals. All right, so now this still looks a little sloppy. So now that I kind of pulled everything out of this problem, I'm going to just make it look a little neater. I know that 2 times x is 2x, and I can put the 4 a little closer because I'm going to find 4 less than the product of 2 and x according to this, and it still equals 12. So we can kind of shrink that down a little bit. So there will be a couple problems like this on your test. So you can see what I did. Okay, down here is the math work I did. But what I did was I took apart each portion of the sentence and decided what to do with it. Again, this would probably be a good thing to go back, rewind, and watch a time or two to make sure you really understand the logic behind what I'm doing here. All right. So again, I had 4 less than the product. So again, I've got 4 less than whatever comes next. Okay, 4 less than. That's why it's there. The product of a number that we didn't know and 2. All right. So that the product of these 2, we know 2 times x is 2x. All right. And all that is 12. All of that equals 12. Okay. So that was the logic there. So, all right. I think I'm about ready to wrap this up. I need to go to bed. I'm tired. The rest of you should go to bed too. Okay. Get some sleep. Again, you can always watch this again. You can ask me questions in class. A little lower viewership tonight, which is what I assumed based on, we kind of decided last minute as a class that I would do this tonight. But I think this is a good thing to be able to look at and review. And, you've got a couple of days to really understand the reasoning behind why we're doing something, how we're doing something. And I can guarantee that if you're watching this, you're setting yourself up for success. Okay. I guarantee from what I've seen in the past, if I've seen people on the live stream or at least watching it after, that also correlates with a better test score. So providing you with an opportunity here, and I see a lot of you here tonight, which is great. So the opportunity is only going to help you be better. So it can't hurt you. I didn't make anything worse tonight, I hope. Okay. So if it's only there to help you, take advantage of those things. And again, the people that don't, it catches up with them. So I know it's extra work. I know you'd rather be doing something else, at 8 o'clock at night, up to 9 o'clock. And, that's a good thing that you made the right choice. So anyway, good to see you guys. Thanks for stopping in and checking out the stream. And I don't know that I don't think I'm going to do another one before the test. I think this is plenty. I think this is really what you need to hammer out. So thanks for stopping in, and we'll see you tomorrow.